Yes, hello, good morning. It is September 25th, 2024. This is Dan Fitzgerald. I'm going to load up another video and send it up to YouTube. It'll be a short one. I wish to indicate that, again, my videos are being privatized. I just called the Russian embassy here in Ottawa to give further report on actions against my wife and I here in the past few weeks. I got enough in the phone call before Canada cut me off from the call to the Russian embassy. I'd like to stipulate that the Canadian government and their U.S. compatriots have been working together through the UN to eliminate my wife and I's case against a massive criminal complex in Canada's federal and provincial governments and their ministries and institutions. And to give a comparison on the issue of attacks against my wife and I, attacks against all of our mobile phones and tablets here in Ottawa, also for the last 10 years or so, but locally here for the last several years, since we came here at the end of 2016 from filthy Quebec, who tried to frame me for crimes I didn't commit. My wife and I in 2017, Jennifer, we went to my mom's residence in a little community called Crystal Beach next to Lake Erie, and lived with her for a year. At that time, we had a Chinese Pixie Android phone, which was before we had left Ottawa, that phone was being terribly hacked along with our laptop, okay? Now, when we went to Crystal Beach in 2017 and lived with my mom for a year, we had the Pixie tablet Android that we bought for $80 or $90 at Loblaws. They used to sell phones and tablets very cheaply. And our Pixie phone was being hacked like you wouldn't believe, okay, here in Ottawa. When we went to live with my mother in Crystal Beach, we noted how the hacking had practically decreased down to zero of our Pixie phone, our tablet. And there was next to no hacking at all on that phone. As a matter of fact, we were able to get email communications to the UN on that particular device in this little community, Crystal Beach. Now, we will state that in Crystal Beach, there's quite a motorcycle gangster following there. They're quite big there in these small communities, right up to Port Dover, Ontario, which is a meeting place for biker gangs and that kind of thing on their Harley Davidsons. This place is filled with these people everywhere. We were never ever harassed by the bikers there. They could have easily intimidated my wife and I, or they could have used advanced electronic hardware to hack our Pixie phone there. None of this ever happened. The phone remained relatively clear from hacking in Crystal Beach, okay? But here in Ottawa, before we left, the hacking of our Pixie was it was a nightmare. It was terrorism, quite frankly. Now, stating that, and the fact that, we've lived here in Vanier, which is Ottawa, which is essentially the East End, and the fact that there's a biker church just down the street from us, 2 blocks away, and I believe that some of the members of that church are, hardened Hells Angels and perhaps some other organized criminal gang members within the construct of the biker gangs in Canada. For 3 years, we've lived here almost, and they have never bothered us, never, not directly or threatened and intimidated us. I did go up and talk to one of these people a few days ago there at this church, and their Harleys were there. They had suggested I talk with the pastor. I probably will eventually. I haven't done it yet. I probably will go up there and have a talk with him about a couple of things. There's a couple religious things I need to explain to him from the Bible as well, if he's interested. And then I need some form of confirmation from him that the biker community here is not involved in the attacks against my wife and I and our phone. But what I wanted to state regarding Crystal Beach in Ottawa is that while we were there, our Pixie Android was never attacked. But here, badly attacked. What's the difference? Well, the difference is this. In Crystal Beach, Ontario, and Lake Erie, the law enforcement detachment there is the Niagara Falls Police, okay? And, you know, how do I summate this? Well, simply that there's about one cop every 25 kilometers on patrol, okay? Maybe once a week or once every 2 weeks or twice occasionally we would see the Niagara Falls police on patrol in Crystal Beach, okay? So what does this tell you? Well, here in Ottawa, we have the OPP, we have the RCMP, we have CSIS, we have the Ottawa Police Service, we have across the river here in Quebec the gang-run Gatineau Police and the Nazi bald-run provincial Quebec Police, okay? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different jurisdictions of law enforcement within 5 miles of our home, okay? And our iPhone, ever since we came back here in 2018 from my mom's house, we have been getting attacked and attacked. Our phones attacked, iPhones attacked, cutting off our phone calls, blocking us from the UN, trying to block us from embassies here. Canada's been pulling all kinds of shit. And it's security that's doing all this. It is that. Okay, because the evidence is, again, and I'd like to repeat this for those assholes who are listening in, and who these unscrupulous security police bastards, you're listening in, and you're blocking my statements from leaving the country. You and the American government and their filthy gang security are blocking us from the UN. You're blocking people from around the globe, outside of Canada, from viewing my videos, folks. And it's just simply suppression because they're all in trouble, okay? Because Canada's running a gangster state, okay, in the police. And indeed, the one of these gangster bikers told me a long time ago, because I did have conversations with them briefly, or people that know them, told me that they made it clear to me that the police have their own gangs. Has nothing to do with them.
You didn't put my bell on.
Oh, sorry, I will. Sorry, I'm interrupted here by my wife. So, very definitely, the only difference between Crystal Beach, where we lived with my mom in the Fort Erie area near the lake there, Lake Erie, is the fact that there's very few law enforcement officials. It's very hard for them to attack us on our phone because they don't have the capability, okay? That's why our phone was free and clear, all right? But here in Ottawa, it's just attack after attack after attack. They all have moved against us. All of them have been stealing our emails, stealing our letter mail, hacking our email addresses at Gmail and Hotmail. They're hacking our bank account here. It is, as far as the bank accounts being opened up in my name in multiple provinces, okay, at different banks. This is the gangs and the police behind all this, okay. We did play the recording call with Amazon.ca. I recorded the phone call with one of their agents. I played it to Trudeau's office on his voicemail, the whole recording of what Amazon said to me about fraudulent bank accounts in my name, using my phone number, by the way. And we also played it to the office of Pierre Poilievre, okay, to no avail. I have not heard from these two offices. No one has called me to say they're going to look into it. So I think that, you know, on the whole, maybe, and I don't know for sure, this is just guesswork on my part. I'm not absolutely sure of this at all, but it's possible that my phone calls to these two jerks that my phone calls to them are being blocked by organized crime and Nazis in the RCMP. Primarily, in my wife and I's case, it's this bald collective of balds that have taken over security that have targeted my wife and I, essentially. Okay, so I wanted to create this video and upload it. There's a lot of allegations against multiple police forces here, allegations of unlawful, illegal criminal activity by them against me and my wife through our phones in particular, which is illegal. The usage unlawfully of Bill C-51 against us, and the list is just endless. They've committed so many illegal invasions of my wife and I. It's just virtually unbearable. Cutting me off today from the Russian consulate here at their embassy. It was not the Russians that did that. This was Canada that did that. They have no right to do that. They have no right to block me from calling the Russian Federation mission for the Security Council in New York. They have no right to do that whatsoever. Canada's done that along with their American compatriots. Okay, it's illegal, quite frankly. I can call whatever member state I want at the UN. There's nothing they can do about it. Every Canadian citizen has a right to expose crimes by their governments in NATO. Every citizen has a right to rat on this massive gang complex run by Nazi balds in law enforcement here in all 5 jurisdictions, including CSIS, okay? Because they don't want me to expose them. Now, they cut off my call to the Russian embassy this morning. I was not finished giving them a report on the events of the last few weeks. But that's okay because I got the most important ones in there anyway. The penalization of my wife at small claims court, having to pay lawyers $100 when the defendant attorney told the judge that he didn't want the $100 payment for his having to show up at small claims for his client, and the judge turning around telling my wife she has to pay it anyway. Okay, this is a bunch of horse shit. It doesn't matter here who you report it to, unlawful activities by associate judges, assistant judges, or whatever the case may be. The fact of the matter is all the judges in our cases have mostly been dirty except for one. And this is in the past over, 2000, well, let's just put it this way, from 2006 here in Ontario all the way to now. Every single case before judges, no matter what judges are, criminal, civil, every case has been handled by corrupted judges except for really one. Okay, so I'm just telling you that the security are murderers and killers. Okay, they're in disrepute. The government of Canada is in disrepute. Parliament's in disrepute. The opposition parties in the House of Commons have broken the rules of Parliament, and this is proven by the fact that Queen Elizabeth II years ago, we had an Indian chief here named Chief Spence. She was on a hunger strike on an island below Ottawa during the Harper government regime, and they wouldn't pay any attention to her. The opposition was completely ignoring this chief in her case against Canada for her tribe. The Harper government was belittling her, and the Queen found out about it in the media at Buckingham Palace in London. She sent Chief Spence a letter telling her to go to the opposition. As soon as the opposition, the House of Commons, the Liberals, the Bloc, and the NDP, whoever was in there, as soon as they heard of the letter that Her Majesty sent Chief Spence, right away, they decided they were going to help her, okay? And while, of course, the Harper government took a different position where they tried to bring out evidence against the tribe, allegations regarding mismanagement of monetary funds by the federal government. Chief Spence, as I recall, said it wasn't me. I wasn't the chief then. It was not my fault. Like, she was very honest and very decent, and they hammered her. If it hadn't been for the Queen to intervene, Chief Spence would have died in that on that island in that tent. Okay, she would have starved herself to death. There's cases here. The Stacey Bonds case. There is the terrorist Cotter case. There's been other civil cases against the government security here, and where the awards for these victims have been in the millions for far, far less than what they've been doing to us, my wife and I. Judging those cases, of course, in the one case, this Cotter's a terrorist from Guantanamo Bay. He got $10 million out of the Trudeau government through the Supreme Court with his attorney. in an appeal to the Supreme Court. I don't personally feel that his case was legitimate. What happened with him was he had a lot of intelligence data on mass criminal corruption and security here in Canada, and his lawyers knew about it, and they could substantiate his claims. So the government wanted a cover-up, and so did the Supreme Court. So they gave him the $10 million on the agreement that they would give him the money, free him, and simply he would never be heard from again, and not in the media or anywhere else. Him and his lawyers agreed, and he got $10 million. The Supreme Court told Trudeau, you can't appeal this. You can't. Okay, the reason why Trudeau couldn't appeal it is because if he did, then the media would get hold of the case. There'd be a trial in the Supreme Court of Canada against the government. It would go public, and whatever evidence Cotter had against security here and the government would be made public. Okay, that's why. The Stacey Bonds case years ago was a case where this woman was manhandled by criminals in the police. They jumped out of a car, threw her to the ground. They accused her of telling them to fuck off. She claimed later on she never said any such thing to them. They threw her to the ground, nearly breaking her arms. Four of these gangster bullies get out of a police car. They take her to the police station. They use a knife and cut off her bra, and they throw her into a jail cell with no clothes on, stripping her naked, and the four of them laughing about this behind a plate glass mirror. The police thought they got rid of the video, okay, because there's a video running on everything they're doing. So when the time came for the four police defendants to show up in court, they told the female judge, well, Your Honor, none of this ever happened. I mean, it was, it just didn't happen. There's no evidence or anything. And the judge then stood up, the female judge, and yelled at them, basically saying, I saw the video, you're guilty. Which resulted in Stacey Bonds getting a compensation package of $2.5 million. When Stephen Harper found out, the Prime Minister, that she got $2.5 million, he took actions to stop the government having to pay out for police crimes against their citizens. Okay, he pulled some stunts so that people make it very hard for people to embarrass the government and their filthy security that's protecting all these criminals on Parliament Hill from getting any money for compensation. Our case, based on those two cases, is 10,000 times worse. So when I say to Trudeau, we want $10 million, the immediate release of our two children, Lara Danielle Fitzgerald and Sebastian George Fitzgerald, he is 17, she is now 18, to be released to my wife and I, and for them to contact us, okay, by telephone, or for us to contact them with all contact information. That was one of my demands. $10 million as well, and my brother arrested for violating Ontario's estate laws because he's committed crimes now by doing so. So I emailed Trudeau twice on this. Actually, no, I think it was actually 3 times. I emailed him again yesterday. No response from this bastard, okay, because he thinks he's going to get away with it, okay? So now October's approaching. Trudeau has till exactly the 30th to bow and respond positively to all my requests without any delay, because after the 30th, the amount goes up to $100 million. Okay, this will be posted on my signs on my trailer. We want $100 million in compensation from the government. Our case is the worst human rights case that Canada's seen since Canada became a nation. I will be writing that on my signs. That's true. The governments here decided that they would, in most cases against them, where the victims are trying to take them to court for compensation. Most of the cases, the government uses security to block the victims from going to the media. They block them from getting a lawyer. They block them from going outside the country regarding violations of international law and human rights. They do that. That's their primary objective. It's just a few cases slip under the rug and get away from them, or people get to the news media first, and their cases are on television. Okay, and that settles it right there. The minute that happens, they got to pay. And the minute that happens, so what the government has done, the governments of Canada, including the feds, the federal government, Conservatives, Liberals, all of them actually provincially as well here, what they've done simply is they're spending millions and millions of dollars. They're violating the Charter of Civil Rights. They're using gangs and Nazis and security to suppress their victims from them having to financially compensate them as victims of crime by the government, security, and even the courts. That's what they're doing. The only way to get them to pay is to humiliate them in public. That's the only way. For us, it's been years and years of no public attention. We were unable to scrutinize the government in YouTube due to the privatization of my videos, which people outside the country can't find. Okay. The American government in Washington has been assisting them all along, including the White House and the State Department, in the cover-up of the worst human rights criminal case against a government in this country since this country was born. That's our case. You understand? So I have to go out there with signs on my trailer every day, all day long, because I'm going to destroy them with the people here. It'll spread across Canada, hopefully. I'm not greedy. I don't want the $100 million for myself. My wife and I will take a small chunk of it. My daughter will get a chunk of it for them covering up her attempted murder when she was a baby in the hospital, as well as her catheter being pulled, which almost killed her, and the gastroschisis that she had as a result of a doctor leaving my wife on Paxil, knowing that it would hurt the developing baby inside my wife's womb, which caused our daughter's problem when she was born to begin with. So, yeah, so I think we have a pretty good shot. And we're going to take it, for what it's worth. Anyways, that's the end of the video. Upload it. And but one of the most important things is this, is that the government of Canada and their American buddies are blocking me from calling the Russian UN mission to the UN. And, they blocked us from the ICC. They blocked us from the High Commission of Human Rights on our case against them. We were told by the Dutch government, based on the allegations we made against the government of Canada, that our case had to go to the ICC. This was 4 years ago. I've not forgotten that. It was the Dutch government that made the judgment call. They checked into the legalities of our allegations to see if there was any merit in them to go to the High Commission of Human Rights or the ICC. They were the ones who told us that our case had to go to the ICC. They told us that. They sent, prior to my calling them and them making a decision, they made a decision before I called them to find out where we should go with our case. They made a decision before I called them. They had already sent the allegations to the prosecutor's office at the ICC and sent communications to them directly from their mission in New York. The Dutch government did this 4 years ago. And they told us our case had to go to the ICC. That's unchanged. But I refuse to contact the ICC on the grounds that they have an illegal warrant out for President Vladimir Putin. They should have a warrant out on Prime Minister Trudeau and Pierre Poilievre and the rest of them in the House of Commons here. And some of their Ontario underlings should also have warrants for their arrests in this case. Okay, that would also be one of the reasons why the government here and their filthy security are doing all they can to silence our case, because our case very much falls under international criminal law. Okay, so it's expanded. The Dutch government realized this 4 years ago and realized that our case falls under international criminal charges against the Canadian government and their security. They realized this because that's essentially what they said when they sent what I had stated to them in the allegations to the ICC prosecutor's office, and at that time it was Ms. Basuda. Mark P. Dillon was the lead investigator at that time at the ICC. I had a few communications from him. Now, this guy never received one thing from my wife and I. The Dutch government here apparently sent them the file that my wife and I put together. They didn't receive that file, by the way. Because Dillon would have contacted me by email and said, "Oh, well, we've received a file from the Dutch embassy in Ottawa, Canada, on your behalf. And I'm reviewing the file now, and I'll let you know my findings once I've finished reviewing the file. That's what he would have said. Mr. Dilla never contacted me by email, indicated he received the file from the Dutch embassy here, not once. He said, all he said was that he only received a couple of communications and that we did not send them any evidence. That's what he said. So he said that he was going to archive the case and leave it open, which he did. It is still open, okay? And Canada, it's only because Canada and the U.S. government's been blocking us from exposing the Canadian government and the big secret about their security that they've created and their filthy courts. That's the only reason why, okay? That Trudeau and his government are not already criminally charged for all they've done. The crimes have continued against us by state actors, okay? These still actions being committed against us by security illegally and covertly, and I'm going to nail them, all of them here out in, I'm going to have a sign stating my wife and I lived in Crystal Beach, Ontario, near Lake Erie, where there was one cop every 25 kilometers coming through town once a week, and our phone was never hacked there. Yet in Ottawa, we're hacked every day of the week, okay? So, you know, people are going to know. It's going to damage their reputations no matter what. The police, the courts, and the government, their reputations will be damaged. There's no doubt about that. Okay, I'm hoping that the international community here will finally pick up on my signs, that they will take the initiative to leave their embassies and get off their asses and drive by me and my signs and pull over with their red-plated cars and read what their ally Canada's been up to, okay? This is one of those cases where, frankly, if my wife and I could have gotten it to the Supreme Court on a first appeal, the Chief Justice would have no choice but to tell Trudeau and Parliament, you have to compensate this couple. That's what he would tell them. Okay, you can't appeal this. They cannot appeal this case, and they know that. But now, instead of paying out, they've decided that in cases of this extremity, which will ruin them completely, that they've decided that they are not going to pay a cent, that they're going to spend millions to suffocate the victims, okay, which is what they've been doing with security. When we look at Trudeau being ignored at the UN, them walking out on him at the UN when he was at the podium, when we look at him being ignored at leader summits, I can tell you people with absolute 100% certainty that one of the reasons for them ignoring him is our case. I can tell you that for sure, okay? And he damn well knows it as well. Thank you very much. Shalom. God bless.